Populism has been much discussed in the last few years. Reporters, columnists, and TV pundits have had a lot to say. Perhaps you've read or seen some of them. In most cases, the tone of the story is one of concern, even panic. Should we really be worried? Is populism bad? Well, put simply, populism is best defined as discontent among the many, among the populace, with the few, the leadership class, that runs society. Populism can take many forms. There is a left populism, and there is a right-wing populism. But in my view, it is misguided to think of populism in this way. Populism is an attempt to give voice to ordinary people seeking to hold powerful institutions accountable, whether it be the government, politicians, or corporations. Discontent with those in power is normal in a democracy like ours. Our Constitution, laws, judges, and regular elections are designed to express the will of the people. Those we elect to office go about the business of governing. We are aware that there exists a system of campaign donors, government bureaucrats, lobbyists, and others who play roles in what's a gigantic machine of modern governance. We also know that more and more of our lives are being shaped by universities, newspapers, large corporations, and of course, Hollywood. We may object to this or that aspect, or this or that policy. Pro-life Americans, for example, have long objected to the abortion regime. But for the most part, Americans are okay with the system, provided, of course, that they're given an opportunity to participate in the decision-making that will shape our country's future. It's an imperfect system, but in normal times we agree that, overall, it's decent enough. Populism arises when large numbers of ordinary citizens, often in response to broad changes imposed from the top down, or in response to systemic injustices that are chronically unaddressed, begin saying no to the established system. The system, for these people, is no longer okay. Voters stop becoming just cynical and may even become angry. They judge the people who sit on top of society to be positively hostile to their interests and their values. Now, anger is a powerful emotion in political life. It motivates people to go to rallies and shout slogans like "drain the swamp" and "lock her up." Anger can be volatile. It sends people into the streets, sometimes triggering not just protests, but also riots. It is certainly not a good thing for our society to be convulsed by irrational populist anger. Pope Francis has been a strong critic of certain kinds of populism, especially those which don't respect the rights of the minority, or the poor, or the vulnerable, or where human rights are threatened. But Pope Francis has also celebrated and encouraged what some have called an inclusive populism. On many occasions, he has denounced the global economic system, and this stance of opposition encourages populism. The same is true when a few years ago, he encouraged young people to make a mess. But it's also not good when the people running our society insist upon failed policies and perverse values. It's not good when our leadership class is isolated from their fellow citizens, living in closed communities. Anger grows as we see them censoring legitimate debate, canceling inconvenient opinions or persons, while ignorant of and indifferent to the problems facing ordinary Americans. Now, some years ago, I sensed that the United States was heading towards an upsurge in populism. The key clue for me was when, in 2012, one presidential candidate called half the country takers. And then, only 4 years later, in 2016, the candidate from the other party labeled them deplorables. Today's populist rebellion against America's ruling class, rightly understood, is a good thing. It is pressuring politicians in both parties to pay attention to the difficult economic challenges facing families and American workers, and to hold large technology monopolies accountable. It is asking for something as simple as reverence for our national symbols and traditions. And it opposes the reduction of citizens to divisive racial or sexual categories. Everyone should condemn violence, but our elites have become insular, arrogant, and ignorant. They are not likely to correct course on their own. They need to be shaken up. And populism, expressed through democratic means, is the best way to do exactly that. I'm Rusty Reno, editor of First Things for Edified.